So, because this video is a bit spicy, um, all right, bud. I would like to add a short um, preface to this video with the statement that I do not condone violence towards any group, nor for any reason. You know, I'm not here to take sides or anything. I'm just simply here to relay, as it were, my own curiosities to you, and I stand by that. So here we go. I've recently just watched this film called Lansky, and I think it came out this year. I watched it with my parents, so I couldn't really talk about the connections I was making to them, hence this video. Yeah, so there's just this main thing that I want to touch on about this film. So just to explain a bit of the plot and then get into it. Right, so Lansky is the name of a man who belongs to a certain group. Don't worry, I'll add a visual aid up in post. And this film is about kind of his life, being a New York gangster, and it's about him essentially selling his soul for wealth and power. And it was actually a good film. Like I didn't detect any kind of diversity in your face or anything. But there was just a couple of scenes that stuck out to me. So yeah, this first scene, it was they were in New York, and it was before the war in like 1930s. And there's this meeting of mid-century Germans in New York, and it's done in like a very two-dimensional sense, like, oh, these are the bad guys type of way, obviously, right? And they're having this sort of like a like a 2 minutes of hate against a certain group, right? And all of a sudden, little blokes turn up with Lansky, and they kind of beat them all up, and it's framed as like framed to look like a certain group of heroes, and in this, which is like obviously, but they also like completely ignore the fact, like this is like partway through the film, right? But they also completely ignore the fact that like Lansky is this like mob boss, and he's already complicit in the deaths of dozens of innocent people, and they just kind of glaze over that fact as though it's been like fully redeemed by, because they punched a mid-century German. And I just thought it was like, I guess I get that he's like the protagonist of this film, but they they're making things seem like a bit one-sided when actually it's a little bit more complicated. It's like, and I wrote it's like an example of the cathedral and how they're trying to manage public perception. Where we're led down this narrative where the ultimate evil is the mid-century German, and the ultimate victims are a certain group, whereas we know it's more complicated than that, and that there were, especially concerning the Germans anyway, there were much darker forces at play in Weimar Germany that were, that are purposely left out today. And it was kind of a it felt like we were seeing the values of today portrayed in a historical setting, and this is going to lead on to another talking point, which is actually one of my first proper red pills on this particular question anyway. And ironically, this is coming from Jordan Peterson, talking about what the Bolsheviks did to the kulaks people after the Russian Revolution. And I remember he said something like, and then 6 million Ukrainians died. I can't do the accent. And I was like, oh, wait a sec, I've heard that number before. And then I was wondering, like, hey, why did we only get to learn about kind of a certain group and not this other one? Like, um, and if you're watching this video and you're like scowling at me, just open your mind and try and really try to transcend your conditioning and try and ask yourself like, uh, you know, a similar a similar number of equally valuable human souls, um, over a similar number of years, around about the same time, give or take, were were taken from this world in a similarly grotesque ways, and yet, I hadn't heard of the Kulaks people until after I'd left secondary education, whereas we were bussed off for the day to a Holocaust memorial center to learn about to learn all about it and like even meet like a real Holocaust survivor. Were they real? I think they were evacuated. Actually, I'm not sure, but we got to meet like an actual person, and we must have been it's probably like 12 or 13 maybe. Uh, and so I ask again, why does one group why is one group forgotten and the other kind of hammered into our minds, hammered into the minds of children like all over the West, yeah, even 70 years after it happened. Because um, if you're wondering, basically the deal with the Kulaks people, the Kulaks were peasants, I'm told, who were kind of reeling from the Russian Revolution, and they were just kind of getting back on their feet. They had farms and this kind of thing, and they were labelled as evil. Oh, I've just seen the mouse. Hello, mouse. And they were labelled as evil by the communists because obviously they had more than they they saw them as like capitalist bourgeoisie pigs, whatever. And they just went in there and they collectivized all the farms, and they just killed anyone who didn't comply. And it led to like the starvation of around 6 million people, as I said. Um, so yeah, it was just one of those questions. It was like, huh, why is one group like, why didn't we learn about this other group, this supposedly equally valuable group? You know, is it really coincidence, or does someone higher up the food chain, want to control the way you think to suit their own preferred outcomes? Um, so yeah, there we go. And this leads on to my next point, which is about the part of the film where it's after the war and Mayor Lansky is part of this kind of American national crime syndicate, and he's in this huge casino, and a couple of people belonging to a certain group, they turn up to have a meeting with him, and they're asking about him contributing to the formation of a state specifically for a certain group, and Lansky is all over it. He's giving them cash and offers to source bombs and weapons and like more money and uh, more money for them, and to like kind of to use against the for this movement. Um, and presume they don't say in the film like what they need the weapons for necessarily. They just need it for the formation of a certain state. But presumably they're just innocent Palestinians, right? Uh, they're just the current inhabitants of that bit of the world. And one of the justifications they use in the film is that this certain group, they just want to defend themselves and ensure their own existence into the future, and things are. And I'm not very knowledgeable on that particular event in history, so I won't dig much deeper. But I will say that I'm kind of seeing similarities between a certain group and the mid-century Germans, at least through the lens of both groups are trying to ensure their own survival, and even if it means destroying another. I'm seeing mid-century Germans kill members of a certain group, and I'm seeing other members of a certain group uh, wasting Palestinians. And it just kind of I'm looking at it from like a moral and amoral perspective. Like, at least one of those conflicts is over. You know, um, uh, yeah, I'm just struggling to see the difference there. One of those conflicts is over, like, albeit at a great expense to the rest of Europe. But the other ones are still actually going on. Like, lives are still being lost today. And it's all framed in the film as this kind of heroic act. Like, even though I guess they're innocent Palestinians, are they innocent? I don't know. If you know something like that I'm not getting here, like, please reply in the comment section. Like, but yeah, there's just killing Palestinians with weapons supplied by this mega criminal mass murdering mafia boss who earns all his money from, like, the very moral industry known as gambling and casinos. And obviously, yeah, that's kind of all I really had for that one. Just obviously you can see why I couldn't tell my parents, but yeah, there you go. Other than that, it was a good film. I really enjoyed it. This is my view, by the way. There's a mountain over there behind that. But yeah, that's what we're dealing with. Just asking these questions. Why is one group more important than the other? Why is one group allowed to kill innocent people, presumably, to ensure their own survival and have their own country, but the other group is not? And obviously we've seen the American occupation of Europe, which has lasted for over 70 years now. Yeah, I think I'll leave that there because my mind is trailing off now. But yeah, there you go. I hope you enjoyed the video. That is all, and carry on for me.